G'day viewers, I'm going to try and repair this capacitor. I've got to make a pipe to a PV. I can't actually push that, the electrode connection back into the capacitor itself, so that's actually been pulled out and someone's pulled it out a little bit. Now it won't go back in, so I'm going to have to put a bit of pipe there, PVC pipe or something, and just glue it down and put like something between here and here on the insulators to reinforce that one there that's been broken. Try and seal this capacitor up before it gets any more damaged. It shouldn't be, there's actually self-healing. So I have to find a way to repair that. Make sure it's a good seal. Unfortunately what happens is someone's actually lent it against something a bit hard. It's chipped this electrode and it's snapped this standoff off. So it's unfortunate someone did that. But he has got more of these that aren't broken. He's got some stored in the shed, out of the weather and out of harm's way, so if this turns out to be a dud, I can exchange it for the other four that he's got, which are in a lot better condition than this one. And we can start having some fun. Right, it's NST. After do some cleaning, have to clean up that enclosure box, straighten it all out, and might use it for something else. Actually got a nice armoured HT cable as well, which is a good pretty good good idea. There's one of the tube connectors that went into the sign. Had all stuff sitting on top of it, so it's all partially damaged, so some of that may be okay. As for this NST, let's see what the maker's date. Put the light on. Oliver J. Nielsen and Co. Proprietary Limited. Switchgear manufacturers. Melbourne, Adelaide, Sydney. Primary 230 to 240 volts, 1.0 amps. So 240 volts goes in there. So it's not a three-phase. I have to find which one of those is earth. I'm not too sure. I have to do some multimeter tests. The secondary volts, 2000 volts, 100 milliamps. Serial number 1195 something. I'm not sure if this will actually work, but if it doesn't, I'll get some good ceramic standoffs off it, because it's been sitting in on the something like this from yay along to that battery where the sign, the neon tubes were, and it's been sitting this high off the ground for at least 20 or 30 years in the Mildura bloody weather, and it's gotten cooked and all the asphalt's just melted around it. The asphalt that the NST has put it in, and the transformer's just sunk. It's rusted all the lamination, so as it sunk it might have broken off some wires inside. So, but 2 kV at 0.1 amps, it's not quite as high amp as a mott, but it's like having a mott that never needs ballasting. So if it's okay, I might be able to may be able to repair it. I'm not too sure, but it'd be nice. This is a nice old antique, this one. There's no year, probably be from the 50s, 40s or 50s. That nameplate looks cool there, I'll keep that. Oh, viewers, we've got a bit of a brown at the moment. The power's all browned out and we've only got 180 something volts, so I don't know what's going on there. So when the power restores, I can get around to doing some careful safety checks on these and testing them out. I'll pull the NST out of this. This thing is needs to be cleaned up and fixed separately, so okay, viewers. That radio is a Healing Model 505E from 1955. I managed to go on the vintage radio website and got a schematic for it, so I doubt it's going to work again, because the power transformer being touching the ground, it's all bloody, the wax paper's been rotted out of it, unfortunately. Yeah, the weather's wrecked this bloody thing, unfortunately. As you can see in there, it's not chewed out by mice or anything. If I can clean this thing up and do some checks on the transformers, check the windings and everything, you never know, I may be able to get this to work again. Definitely in these new caps, and possibly resistors, but got something unwanted living in there. But the Healing gives the American setup of the chassis. This chassis is actually like how an American radio, or some All-American 5-sided chassis is vertical like that. Bit rusted, so hopefully that Charis one was okay. Just that paper's got no wax left on it, so it may not be as insulative. But if it still does work, and if I can clean it up and that still does work, see if I can dip that in some varnish and put it under a vacuum to try and protect the windings from shorting out. Yeah, that speaker's gone. It's a 3 ohm permanent magnet speaker. I'll have to find another 3 ohm speaker to match that. The actual paper cone looks relatively intact. It's maybe okay. But yeah, she's been out in the weather for way too long. The plastic case is very brittle. It's got a clip sort of plug on it. Piggyback, I forget to give that a clean vinegar and salt treatment. Give these a bit of a cut and polish and a scrub. They're on a pretty good nick. Bit of a chip there, but it's not hasn't done any structural damage to the plug itself. Been ripped out of a wall outlet, so I can repair that. That one there is in better condition, no chips or anything on that one. I'll give them a bit of a cut and polish to shine up that Bakelite, and soak them in salt and vinegar to polish up these terminals, the pins. Bit dusty. Viewers, when the powers are stored, we can start doing some tests on those transformers out there and repair that capacitor. Okay, viewers, I very carefully put that standoff back in and glued it down with some silicone. That's pretty secure now. Let that dry and that will seal all the oil from drying out. Did a test on a multimeter and I found that was positive and that's negative. But there's are AC capacitors anyway, so 13.8 kV AC. We'll try charging it with an MOT later. We'll wait for this silicone to set. I'll have some fun with this. It's good to pop batteries with if I can get enough of these. Before I move on to those, I'll get these Bakelite plugs out the way first. Cut off that scrap copper wire. That's just making a bloody mess, and I'll take those plugs inside in the sink and we'll give them a bit of a scrub down. See how nice they come up. Okay, viewers, there's got the scrubbing and salt and vinegar treatment. Instead of the salt and vinegar done, I restored the pins to new. But unfortunately this screw is rusted solid. Same with that one. They just will not bloody budge, unfortunately. So this needs a bit worse, for we've been sitting in the direct sunlight for quite some time. So they're going to have to be parts plug tops or display plug tops, unfortunately. I won't be able to use these ones. This new would have been pretty good to use, but unfortunately that screw is so badly rusted. So they're going to have to be display pieces, those ones. Alright, let's get this valve radio apart and clean this out. Okay, viewers, this is a pretty common colour, a very common colour for this model radio. It's pretty common, but it'd be nice to have it all fixed up and going. The speaker's not in too good a shape, the bloody paper moths have eaten it. It's got those Phillips sealed capacitors. They're like the paper wax ones, but these are the Phillips version. How's that secured, I wonder? If I can bolt onto the speaker there. Got some critters living in there. That coil seems to be intact. They're the most important parts of the radio. IF cans look to be intact, so they're not too badly infested. Dial fascia's all gone, so that's the on-off. It still turns. Oh, beautiful. That's good. That'll be a good spare. All AWV Radiotron original valves. Super Radiotron. Socket's a bit loose. Amalgamated wireless valve. That's the audio output 6BV7. That's IF and AF amplifier in one. That's the, I think that's the, where's that one? I think that's the rectifier. Yeah, 6X4. That one's the IF amp. Oh, that could be the AF amp. This is the IF amp here. It's a mini watt Phillips tube or valve. (406C3184), something in there. Might give it a careful blow over with some compressed air and we'll see what happens. The paper's all intact, so who knows? As long as it hasn't oxidised into the copper windings, it might still work, but I have to clean this right up and somehow seal it with some lacquer or something to insulate it again, because it may burn out. Nice long antenna. Very long antenna actually. Hopefully that's not a coil, that's a coil there. Got to be careful, that's actually the antenna coil, so I'm going to have to be very careful with that. Give it a bit of a careful clean out and stick that back to the chassis and we'll see what happens. Even if I just clean this up with a display piece. Here's a weakest part of the radio viewers, near the Achilles heel. So these things here, I'll very carefully going to reposition that because the plastic nuts are broken off. I'm going to just hot slot that down so it secures it. So there's little wires there are a bit moving around and getting stressed. I don't want those to get broken off. Try and keep this intact even as a display piece. The varnish is all gone, but the copper itself still got the insulation on it. I might just put something over it to stick those windings down. Just hot glue that together, stick it down to that little mounting part bracket there, just so it stops it from breaking any wires off. Like I said, the valve's better now. This is a 686, that's the audio frequency amp, 6BE6, which is a IF amp. I said before, 6BV7. That does that's an audio and audio frequency and intermediate frequency, I think. The audio frequency and output main amplifier, and that's a 6X4 rectifier. Got one paper cap there, 0.02 microfarad, 600 volt. I should have one to replace that. Another paper capacitor there. It's got, strangely, got the American colour coding system on it. That's the first one I've seen in an Australian radio. There's healings always, even though they're all made in Australia, based in Australian circuits with an isolating transformer and everything, they're just set up like an American radio. Like they use these colour-coded caps and this chassis set up and everything. Capacitors here made by British-made Hunt's capacitors. It's 16 microfarad, 350 volt. This one is also a Hunt's 24 microfarad, 350 volt electrolytic. Yeah, they rattle. Yeah, they're dried out. Yeah, they're well and truly dried out, them ones. But to recap these sorts of caps, you unbolt them off a chassis, unsolder them, take the guts out and put a modern radio electrolytic inside the cans. That way you keep that original appeal to the radio. There's a trimmers, they look okay, a bit full of dirt. There's supposed to be an air gap in there with mylar sheets, so that might affect the performance of the radio. The mylar sheet's still intact in that one, so yeah, you can see the rust on those laminations, blowing them apart. It's going to have a big problem with eddy currents, even if this did still work. The eddy currents, this thing's just going to run hot, so it's going to be a parts radio, this one, but at least the valves are intact. I'll stick that down and make sure it all stays intact as a display piece. I got the variable condenser tuning capacitor cleaned up. That all turns. It's just stiff, very stiff. Might as well just lubricate it all so it can work like normal. That's the only decal left in the dial fascia. Golden voice, that's it. The rest of it's all faded away. The water sat here. Sat this corner down, so water all here was all just sat in water when it rained over the years, unfortunately. But these are pretty damn common radio, so alright, let's move on to something else. Okay, if you also saw a clean up alright, I glued all the really delicate parts there and that's all secured. Condenser all moves freely. I aimed up the audio transformer, that aimed up okay, and the power transformer aimed up okay, so they're both still continuity and the right readings in them. That all still works. I wonder if it actually will go after a recap, even though it's weather damaged. Eddy currents might be a problem with those transformers, but don't know, it may work with a new speaker. New speaker and the recap, I reckon that'll just about work. I also had a close look at this. It's 2900 volts, not 2000. There's a date code here, it's got R13th of the 3rd, 1947. The late 1940s NST. There you go, eh? Shame it's been sitting out in the weather for too bloody long. It's got a nice old standoff on it there. I like that little old blue colour. Looks really cool. That's the old original cable that was on it. I'll give that a bit of a test later on the Variac and see if it does anything or not. I also grabbed this NST out of its enclosure. Gave it a good wash down. The enclosure's got a good wash down. This is okay, this wasn't too bad to dirty. I just gave it a bit of a dust over with a broom. It's a lot smaller than this one, as you can see there. Size comparison. This one's at the 12 kV one I got off eBay at 30 milliamps. This one's, let's see, 10 kV at 30 milliamps, 1.37 amps, 1.65 amps, 300 volt amps, 360 volt amps. Not in October 1993, June 1987. The types, yeah, a bit different obviously. So this one is slightly newer than this one. But there you go. I'll give it a test later on today and see what happens. So that'll be another video. So for now viewers, thanks for watching.